Two Federal Reserve officials speaking here in New York at the Shadow Market Committee hinting at the possibility of additional Federal Reserve rate action. John Williams and Eric Rosengren both want to see some fiscal policy action, but suggesting that the Federal Reserve is not done. Here's John Williams from just moments ago.
Central banks, including the Fed, have an important role to play side by side with the healthcare response with fiscal authorities. Central banks have the important role to play both in providing support to the economy, for as Eric said, in pursuit of our dual mandate goals. Obviously, also in supporting effective functioning of financial markets and financial stability.
Eric Rosengren had earlier said that the Fed needs to think about using additional tools. Those tools could include, for example, a wider array of asset purchases beyond just treasuries and agency-backed securities. Said the Fed can help improve financial conditions, but finally said there are places or parts of this crisis that's going on where fiscal tools can be more effective. So two key Federal Reserve officials, both speaking from the same book, suggesting that the market may not be wrong about pricing an additional Federal Reserve rate action at the meeting coming up in a couple weeks, and maybe beyond that, depending upon the trajectory of this virus.
Steve, it sounds like they're spooked. I mean, it sounds like whatever they're watching the market and worried about the downside scenarios that coronavirus really could have on the U.S. economy, supply and demand.
Well, I mean, so I guess one person's spooked is another person's prudent planning. If you're in a position of being able to wield a powerful instrument like either quantitative easing or the interest rate tool, you ought to be thinking, I think, at this moment, given what's happened with the stock market, given what's happened with the bond market, about how you're going to use it, what mix you're going to use it in, what instruments you might use. Just as I was coming up the elevator to this shot right here, a leading economist for a big investment bank said they're going to zero. And he said that with a certain conviction, and then the door closed, of course. But there's a lot of talk about that, Sarah. So they might be spooked, but, you would think also that you would be paying your government officials to be thinking and doing this kind of planning about what comes next and in what stages, and communicating to the market what you're thinking and when you're thinking it.
No, I guess maybe a more appropriate way of characterizing it would be that they are concerned about the economic outlook here,
yes,
and the impact of this,
yes,
and therefore
yes,
they are, ready to move,
yes,
and already have done so.
Oh, in
other
sense,
words, they're not
sorry,
like
yes,
Larry Kudlow saying don't panic, everything's going to be okay.
No. I mean, they see the possibility of serious outcomes from this. I think they're saying that it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion. Earlier in the day, St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard, in fact, said, hey, the main response here is a public health response. And he said it's a very wide public health response that involves government, that involves health agencies, that involves businesses and schools and families and individuals. And he thinks that's going to be a very, very powerful response that he thinks the market, by the way, is underestimating. At the same time, Bullard was not shy about saying, if all of that is not going to be enough, then the Fed is ready to come in. And in fact, Rosengren, just a few moments ago, said if the fiscal authority does not come in, and we've been talking about this all day, how much the government should come in. There's talk about the administration speaking about this. If they don't come in, Rosengren will have to think about what we have to do in that context as well. So, look, they can get 17 people in a room or 15 people in a room, and they can make a decision right away. It takes a lot more for the fiscal side to make that kind of choice.